Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm dead in the centre here, which I try not to do. But I'll just leave it because if I touch anything, it's going to fall off. I'll just hold that up so everyone knows that I'm. I don't know. I can't remember, but what I want to talk about, and this is called the rental car. Oh, hello, darling. It's called the rental car effect. This is probably something that we're going to have to work out. We're going to need all our calculators. First, I'll just say that I've got my best Robbie Williams. Robbie Williams shirt on. It's not actually Robbie Williams. It stands for Rockware, but watched Robbie Williams movie last night. It was pretty good. If you check it out, it's an interesting take. I thought it was really clever to make him a monkey because it it's just really interesting, really good. I'd highly recommend that you go and check it out. But the rental car effect. So it's pretty well known that when people rent cars, that they thrash the fuck out of them because you know what I mean. It's like it's a rental, fuck. You know what I mean. This happens everywhere. It's like I'll hand it back. Now, one should not be mistaken that a rental car is actually like per hour is really fucking expensive. So this is showing that there is an effect. It's like you're paying a lot for an hour, but so when you pay a lot for an hour for a small amount of time, that has an effect on the individual that they disrespect the product because they know inherently that their exchange, that their their arrangement, their financial arrangement is daylight robbery in a way that it is, it's not economically whatever. So that feels like it gives them an entitlement to thrash the fucking rental, right? And then this is a balance between how many people are thrashing rentals, and then the rental companies just jack the prices even more. This is well documented. Now, what I'm telling you about this morning is how this exact effect, the rental car effect, is happening across Australia, right? So very shortly, once we get a few more things over the line to do with this war, this World War III situation, right, which we've been in for a little while now, 5 years, I would say, perhaps 10. Perhaps 80. It really depends which way you look at it. But this World War III situation we're in has been very costly to our country, to our societies, to our culture, all these things. And the main cost we've had is defense, because obviously that's what a war is, which things are trying to be stolen and destroyed and things like that. Now, very strangely in this country, the role of defense has fallen to property owners. But most property owners are above 60. Most Australians, so they're 60 plus, right? And they're not very good at fighting wars. One, because this war is mainly held in technological things that they didn't evolve within. So they're not native users of these environments. Two, they don't understand. And three, that's the whole war, is keeping them oblivious. So the whole World War III can be described as the distraction war. It's how can we keep boomers distracted while we destroy their country? Because all we really need to do is steal it as they die. As they die, we steal it, then no one notices. That's basically how I would describe what I've seen World War III as. Now, my situation is very weird because I inherited a house because my father was old. And this does this weird thing that a lot of people then are like, oh, you're so lucky you inherited a house because your dad died. It's like, oh, right, do you want me to kill your dad and you can fucking inherit a house right now? No, don't be silly. Have you finished learning from your dad? No. Right, do you know what I mean? how about when your son's then fucking, he's just going to kill you? Should we just start this? And that's not what happened. My dad was old. And so I paid the price for that kind of thing. And to be honest with you, that price is ridiculous. Like, I would have been better to just rent a car, like all of you. Now, a lot of you call yourselves property owners, but you're not really property owners. You're in this same rental agreement. And the property housing crisis, the cost of living crisis, this is all just you having an interaction with the rental dealership that you're renting the car off. And you're in the exact same relationship where you're like kind of destroying the place and they're like, well, we'll just jack the prices up. So the only people that are actually feeling this, the weight of this, are people that either have historic bonds, they have, intergenerational bonds, they have things like farms, things like factories, things like manufacturing, whatever, anything like this, and property, or we don't have titles here, which was the big mistake. So that's why we are. This is affecting us differently than it does in the UK. In the UK, they have titles and things like that, and property things, and this is handed down. And this kind of in this model, this is what protects us against this. Now we have like the Senate, and we've just seen the Senate, what's happening there. We've just had a senator basically say that she's going to burn down Parliament House, which is where she works. So that would put her out of a fucking job. So it's obviously like you can see this rental car effect taking place all over the place. And the next comes with the employment. It's just like she doesn't think, oh, I'm going to burn down my work and then I'm not going to have a job. Then no one's going to listen to me. I'm not going to have any fucking power. And then, I've set an example of the whole place burning down. It doesn't matter. As I said, there's no titles. There's no titles. There's no estates. There's no fucking lordships. There's no fucking, like, anything. There's no peerage system, really. The peerage system was hoping to be just cranked up, but it hasn't worked. It is not regulating our behaviour. And that's why I defer all of mine to the UK, who probably, more than likely, because of the mortgage situation, they're actually the owners of the car rental situation. And I'm like, hang on, we need to fucking sort out something better. We can't just have perpetual fucking car rental fucking situation here. Now, next off comes my workload over this period. I am going to work out a per post rate, and I'm going to send it to the government, to the Australian Tax Office, and I'm going to say, well, I need a per post rate of government. I need you to take the total spend on PR and marketing from every government agency, and I need you to work out a per post costing to the Australian people, because obviously this becomes a tax deduction. So this is tax that we're not paying. So this becomes an expense. And I want to know what the per post cost is. And that way, when I work out my bill for defence of the country, I can then work out the per post costing and then receive that as a tax credit. Now, if that's not going to happen, we're going to have a fucking even crazier situation. Because when I look around, I see a bunch of people spending money that they don't have while claiming to be living in houses that they don't own, while claiming to be driving cars that they don't own, while driving to work and going to employment that they don't actually have security within because of this international fucking marketplace of chaos. And so that is a recipe for disaster. So we need some ways to figure our way out of this mess. We can't have everyone fucking renting cars and having a rental car mindset, because that bleeds into other aspects of our culture. Yeah, there is more things going on in ownership than simply, the financial. The financial is basically the least important thing. There is a phenomenon that happens. So the opposite, when people own things, they look after them quite well. When they've had to pay for them outright, when they've had to sacrifice and do these things. In my case, I watched my father's sacrifice, so that's even stronger. But if you've been sold a paradigm where you have been subject to your parents', I don't know, like frugality, and they're doing this other thing, so you're clever because you're doing this rich dad, poor dad, property investor fucking model, and you have a high, don't you know that I make $150,000+ a year of dollary dues, and I do this, and I just rent and fucking rah, 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 rah. So as soon as your fucking old's car kit, you're gonna fucking saw them up and fucking sell it to fucking cash converters, so that you can, keep ticking away at your fucking pokie machine. That's not going to work. But that's what it is. And if it is going to work, then I'd like that to be official. I would like the official fucking government, the federal government, Anthony Albanese's Labor Party, to say, yes, we are going into a rental fucking ownership paradigm. We are indeed 100% communist. We are going to destroy everything and we will own nothing, and we will be fucking happy. As soon as you say it, then I can fucking operate, as a free human being. And while this fucking bullshit's going on, all I see is people hooning around in rental cars and fucking throwing their litter out the window, and you know what I mean, dangerously driving and fucking using their irresponsible fucking financial stewardship to fucking destroy the environment, destroy like local businesses, destroy local manufacturing, destroy social cohesion, which is a big one that the Australian Federal Police Commission, I think she's saying, social cohesion. Well, that's it. That's what's destroying social cohesion. If I go into the casino and I use like fake currency to go and buy, I'm going to get kicked out of there. So what the fuck is where is the actual adjudication? Or are we just going to the model where we're going to bankrupt everyone and take all this stuff, and then we're going to re-establish Australia under the actual ownership structure, so the true people that own Australia, which will be the banks? More than likely, yeah. Well, then what's the long term? Can we please try to reincorporate some ownership principles so that we don't just have this mentality bleeding through every aspect? And how are we going to do that? It should be very important. You know what I mean? This marketplace is not. It is a hot air balloon. It is taken off. And that's, that might be part of some type of overall thing. So it's like, okay, well, we can't go into this perpetual race. We need it. We need a crash, and we need a fucking people, like a solution for the people that are going to fall off this thing, which are basically should be described not as fucking, in the odd case, these people are disabled or they're got mental health issues, and that makes up like 10%. But there is like 70% of these people that are just absolutely fiscally irresponsible. That are, you know what I mean? They're destined to go into this model because they've been sold a consumption, a rental agreement, and they're thrashing the fuck out of the thing. And this is the problem I have. It's like, well, on a spreadsheet in a bank in the City of London, okay, I get it. You're just looking at the country. But when I'm here on the ground, it's like, this is a country. This is an actual country. It's not a mine. It's not a farm. It's not fucking anything else. It's a country that has had its fucking foundations destroyed, laden with fucking dynamite. It has been fucking set to fucking destroy itself from the very beginning because we were not able to set it up with the proper structures that we brought here for some reason or another. I have not found exactly why this happened, bar this reason now that I'm presenting this here. So maybe we needed to establish it in full thing and then claim it back, then fucking establish it as a country. But whatever we do, we need to do it soon. We need to get in the process of declaring this is the operation in front of us. Okay, Australia is not a country. It's a giant fucking car rental, and it's about to turn into a country. And the people that are going to turn it into the country are the fucking British, because we just defended it. Australia didn't defend it. The police didn't defend it. The politicians didn't defend it. And the fucking sure as hell, the fucking people didn't defend it. At all. So you don't fucking own it. You own nothing, and you will be happy once it becomes a country, because then you will feel ownership of it. And once we fucking rejig this whole thing, then you'll be able to actually participate in ownership. But participating in ownership, you're going to want to know what the structure is. So what's the structure going to be? We've already had the Prime Minister say that there won't be a republic. Well, there can't be a republic. So maybe Lydia Thorpe is right. Maybe we should burn down Parliament House and maybe we should build something else. But what would it be? Well, I don't know. I don't know exactly. Is there a possibility that we can have a monarchy where the land base is held as the king? I think so. So who would speak for the land base? Well, people that are the most connected to it. And who would that be? I don't know. People that go through an adjudication process. So there'd be a council. It makes sense for the land base to speak for itself. No one can argue that it's like, well, clearing every fucking tree in the fucking place and doing this thing and polluting it with fucking chemicals. I don't see the English people going and fucking graffitiing on the side of Buckingham Palace. Why? Because there is people protecting it and there is a respect for the monarchy. Still, myself included. But what do? We cannot any longer, and this is no disrespect to the king. King has done an amazing job, and it seems like he's about to continue doing an amazing job, not just in England, not just in the British Empire, but in the entire world, in exposing this type of thing. Because there is no one on earth that has a better perspective of this paradigm than himself, because he knows what it's actually like to wear that crown. That is the single most important thing that he holds. He has that knowledge. He knows. So he can speak to that humbly. And he never really, from anything I see, never doesn't show that. It is a beautiful arrangement that we have gotten to as Englishmen. And so it will come from Englishmen, the solution to this land here, Australia. And this is the moment that we're at. We need to figure it out. We need to have something, a transitional moment from King Charles or perhaps William, it depends on who's going to do it, to a king, and the king is the land base. It's very convenient here because we have an island. We're very unique in this opportunity. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. I'm not saying it's going to work flawlessly. It's going to have a lot of things, but we need to have a transition period. Now, probably the best way that we could do this is have an election or of sorts, like a voluntary process of election for representatives. So to build up the voice of the king, which was going to be the continent of Australia. They are then going to liaise directly with King Charles. And then King Charles can hold the dual roles of being, for the Church of England, down through the voice of God, through that system. And he's going to be the representative the voice of the king. So the delegates that assume the responsibility to speak for the land base of Australia, to speak to him, then he will speak to our political system on the other side, through our Governor General and our Prime Minister and our politicians and their Senate, obviously balancing it as well, because there is a conflict between the interests of man versus the interests of the land base. So we can't have, there's all kinds of things going on. There's been this kind of flirtation with, we'll just give it back to the Aboriginal people. We're going to do everything their way. That's not particularly scientific. The Aboriginal people had a very low distribution numbers on the land base. And they used, very, very efficient models for acquiring what they needed from the land base. There is no pathway back through that way without incorporating mass genocide. So you can't, this is what becomes a problem. We cannot speak to the land through the Aboriginal voice because it's it doesn't appropriately speak to the true representation of the biosphere or to ecology in general. The basic thing should be life. It should be how much life can a square meter of soil hold? And if it is holding life, then it is in harmony with the land base of Australia. If it is not holding life, then it is out of harmony. Now, we can't do this in England because England is over, or Great Britain in general, it's over urbanized. It's been over industrialized. The majority of that place has been affected by industrialization and by over urbanization. But that's already happened and people live there and that is their homes. So here we have a very different situation. We have masses of land that are basically devoid of life because of one, just the naturally occurring environmental situation. So the climate, the natural climate, not the man-affected climate. There is the majority of Australia, i.e. the huge bit in the middle that is called a desert. We didn't affect that. That's how we found it. That is a naturally occurring area devoid of life, and it's still not devoid of life. There is life there that does find a way to exist in that very hostile climate. But there are ways to affect the climate in micro areas, in regions. This needs to be an avenue for habitation in Australia. Basically, it's like if you can go to a desert and you can fucking make that desert, filled with life, whatever life it is, then you are massively contributing to the overall wealth of the country in the long term, because we have an abundance of land. So at the moment, we've been forced to live through the paradigm of London's financial district, which isn't bad. This is what's keeping stability. This is why we aren't in all-out war, because this does, it does establish people of having financial agreements and working to them. It's just that now unfortunately, we're in a little bit too much of a paradigm where there's too much rental and not enough ownership. And so that will outstrip the people concerned with the ownership emphasis, like how people who are owning will react compared to people that aren't owning. Now, this is where it gets really interesting as well. When we talk about the Irish people that have migrated around the world, we don't talk about the Irish people as colonizers. Why is that? Because they didn't do it the way that the British did. They were dispossessed from their land. That's their story, because of an ownership model. And so then they migrated around the world and they lived off the systems. So they're the renters. But we're in a model now where it's like we've got too many renters for everything. Everything is being rented. Think about this compared to, so let's take a prostitute. What is a prostitute is rented? On average, do you think prostitutes are treated better than spouses? Yes or no? So it's like, obviously, this is treated worse than spouses because they're rented. This is the entire fucking situation going on right now. Ownership is very, very important. If you look at Jocko Willick's book, Extreme Ownership, that's been incredibly beneficial to me, operating in this defensive model, because I have extreme fucking ownership and it pisses me off. It's not something I would fucking wish upon anyone unless there was a sufficient amount of people that were experiencing ownership, and not this 5% ownership. That's going to make the problem way worse. There are countless ways in this country to receive actual ownership of an area. And we have a network, internet system that makes that, pleasant. You don't have to go, 5 hours into the middle of the bush, hack it out, burn it down, try to grow fucking wheat or sheep, by yourself and try not to go insane anymore. You can watch fucking Netflix while you're trying to terraform a piece of desert or an old mine site. And you can be in a continuous, conversation about that with the world. But we're not, because everybody's being sucked into this rental, mass distribution situation. That is always going to be behind the curve. Because it's just a rental thing. It's just like, yeah, whatever. It's like, we fucking own it. I can say this from experience, like some of the rentals that I've actually lived in before I was in them, I think they were terrible. It was a constant fucking nightmare. You'd feel bad about putting a garden in, a vegetable garden or something like that. This is everywhere. And it's happening with the mortgage holders because they're actually just renters. They're not actually concerned the way that humans would have been concerned, like, oh, this job where I earn 150, 200 grand a year is obviously not, a guaranteed element of my 30-year progression. That's the spreadsheet. That's the financial equation that no one is speaking about. That is not sustainable. And trust me, the banks and the financial operations, and rightfully so, they're not going to slip into that. They are going to cover themselves in this. So it's just, we've kind of just slipped too far into it. And the worst thing that I see, because when I spoke to him, and a lot of things come from my father, and it wasn't just him. He speaks of his experience with his first wife, who was a pharmacist. They owned 2 pharmacies and they bought properties, but their story was of hardship. It wasn't of a walk in the park. It wasn't of, lavish dinners and lavish clothing and lavish entertainment, all these things. It was of sacrifice to get to where they are over a very long fucking period of time. And so I have a fucking serious problem with the mentality of probably about 80% of people in Australia at the moment who want to have everything. They want to have an extraction job where they're earning a dick load of money, supposedly on their balance sheet. They want to have an expensive fucking house that's huge, that is, whatever, that costs so much to heat and cool, and an expensive car that's the same, and all these things. And then they want to go into, that's just too much, especially when someone who's speaking has just, to date, volunteered to save the entire fucking system from being from taken. Because while it is held majoritively within British banks, within British financial institutions or Western financial institutions, then we're still playing the same game. It's like a casino where it's like, yeah, you're going to lose, you're going to be looked after, and then we'll build you back up so you can get back in the casino. But it's becoming too high a percentage of people are acting in this way. And that's why our enemies are using these methods to interfere with us. And it's the same story as always. You're at the casino and someone's like, oh, this is a pretty girl, come off here, or this is some drink, have some free drinks, have some free drugs, have whatever. It's always the same thing. It's just that the whole fucking country is now the casino. Yeah, so if you're doing this type of thing and then you're online watching porn, or you're on fucking Tinder, or you're on these dating apps, or you're on, spins and fucking gambling, or you're watching UFC, whatever the fuck it is, you never have left the casino anymore. And this is a really shit fucking thing to happen to our country. And so we need an avenue to start to identify regions that are just basically off the radar. They're there. There's no one there. They're cheap as fuck. It just needs flow to get there. And then we need to have it as, so yesterday I spoke about cultural cul-de-sacs. The cultural cul-de-sacs is that you have to live in a cul-de-sac. It's like, no, you and your 10 mates in your 20s can go and take fucking 200 hectares out in the thing, apply for a permit to fucking resident, and then apply for a permit to rejuvenate and to experiment using organic methods to increase the quantity of life within that region, increase. And then it's like futures trading. You have a stake on the future of that land, and you live there for free, and you might even get grants for doing this. And then you have a percentage stake within that land, and then the rest is distributed either to the federal government or to the Crown, however it goes, or perhaps to financial institutions. This is the model we need to go in. We do not need people living in their fucking bungalows, watching fucking porn and gambling. It's like that's, and the problem is that when you get into that, especially in your young years, and this is what's happening now. Like, we didn't have this when I was young. I had to go to work. If I wanted anything, all I wanted was a bodyboard and some fuel and a car. And so I needed to work. And then I had children very young, and then I really needed to work. But I can't imagine having to do that. It was bad enough with drinking, like with alcohol and wanting to go out, but let alone having, a device in my hand that's connected to all this shit. So we need to have new cultural paradigms where people can go, oh, that's a fucking way better thing. And it's not necessarily an all-out hippie thing. It's not volunteer. It's like, this should be ownership. This should be stakeholder environmentalism. So it's like, you're actually going to be, owning this shit. You're going to work together to build something out there. And we just need to normalize different strategies on the land base. Because one thing is, like, we have the farmers out in the West Australia or the whole country, really, they're aging out. Most farmers I've spoken, there's very rarely, the inheritors of this are really keen on the new technologies. They've been sold down the river by the chemical companies and by the tractor companies, and they basically don't own anything. And it's all being basically just commodified down. So that we need to have avenues so that people that are wanting to experiment with rejuvenation or like upskilling or value adding can experience it on the avenues. This would be like the roadsides, the laneways, the fence lines, the things like this, places that you can end up having a stake within this. But we need to have entire like administrative organizations that can fast track and streamline the contracts so that you're protected by contracts, so that you're actually in an ownership paradigm rather than in a protest paradigm or a grassroots wasteful small business paradigm. Because these while there's something, at least there's something, they're not fit for purpose to go head to head with these behemoths of the previous industrial agricultural revolution. So we need stuff that's like, yeah, I'm going to go into this entire fucking shire. I want the contract for all the fence lines to own the fence line so I can plant hedgerows in there. And it's like, I need the help from local, state, and federal government and the finance to enable this, to fast track it through the farmers, so I don't have to negotiate individually with each farmer. You just go in there and say, well, each farmer, you got 4 meters of your fence line, as long as the property sizes are right, that's going to be put back to hedgerows, productive hedgerows, and this is going to be owned by this person. And this is more present if you look at in England, Britain, Ireland, places like this, Wales, Scotland. The parcels of agricultural land are a lot of time lots. And you might have a farm, you might buy a farm and it's got like 6 lots and they might not even all be connected. So this needs to become, we need to figure out, because Australia is so much bigger, you can take 4 meters of fence line in the wheat belt and develop that as an outright business growing purely from the runoff agricultural fertilizers and things. And then you're giving back the biomatter and the biodiversity and the birds and the wind mitigation, all these things. But we need to find out ways to make this a harmonious situation for everyone involved. So the farmers need to be reimbursed. The shire needs to get involved. It's going to bring people to the town. And none of this should cost anything. These towns need people. They have space. This is where we need to incorporate, like, you bring your caravan, you put it there, and you plant some veggie gardens. That's a place. We can't work in the same as like central England, like shire and local governments here, because we're not in that. We're in a fucking, basically a barren wasteland at the moment. And so the things need to, these people should be getting paid the same as I should be getting paid to defend the country. The most valuable people, the most important people in this country are having to pay for the privilege of providing exactly the things that we need. And that is just fucking insane. And all the while, we have this fucking industrial, robotic, computerized fucking casino just expanding all over the place. And those people, because of their, high stakes, they feel like, oh, I've got $1 million of proper mortgage. I've got a, $100,000 car, and I've got 4 families, 4 children in private school, and I've got this many fucking superannuation. It's like they feel entitled to larger influence over the entire thing because they're playing a high stakes game. This is again a pretty consistent model. Anyone that's operating in a high stakes operation, their stress is being projected onto the overall stress of the whole population, but it's self-inflicted. No one's, but well, although be it with some, heavy marketing and some heavy social engineering to make sure that this is straight out of school what people are being led to be doing. And that's where I just basically claim that these resource companies, these banks, the property developers, they're out of balance with an actual country or a region or a state or a local environment. They're using incentive shortcuts and outsourcing to networks of financial assistance or mortgage and loans and car finance. They're leaning on a lot of external things, which is hard to, in my case of having to defend this, it's hard to not claim that as an invasion. So I want to know exactly what the distribution of, where the distribution of those assistance, those large global supply chains of finance and motor vehicle insurance and motor vehicle finance and things like that, where the distribution is that geographically, so that I can, work out who's invading our country in the back door via this shit, who is preventing the natural establishment of a country, that who is turning the place into a fucking shithole, into a fucking digital casino. And where in the world are they? This not scammers, not people, oh, my grandfather inheritance from fucking Nigeria. I'm talking large multinational fucking financial operations that are using their distribution techniques, their manipulation techniques, their financial ownership to prevent a proper establishment. And that nothing should come before that. And I just see too much of this. During my father's era, having the World WWF, WWE thing in the Perth with it saying the Royal Jewel, and then them singing the National American, it's rightfully so that we fucking booed that. You know what I mean? You sort out your own fucking country, because we can do this type of shit. If we turn this around, if I build a precedent now and go, well, I just defended the country, I've got this many fucking tax credits, I'll build a fucking army and I will attack the regions that are attacking us. And I'll do it in ways that you'll never fucking guess. You'll never know. I'm not going to follow your fucking model. I'm going to create new models that are going to fucking tear you to pieces. At the moment, we haven't been doing that. Because we're trying, we have some pretty fucking serious issues here. We have a lot of land. It's no different than colonizing Mars. If it's exactly the same, except it's 1,000 million times cheaper and more accessible. So this is where we need to be. And we need to, just clearly define what is expected of an Australian citizen before you go to work, before you fucking do anything, before you vote, before you mow your lawn, before you drive down the shop to fucking, I don't know, buy a can of Coke. What the fuck is the baseline minimum of this country? And the main disparity at the moment is we have too high a percentage of people in what I declare as rental agreements. And so if the country goes to shit, they're just going to migrate to somewhere else. They're going to go wherever the thing is. There's no stakes in it. They're just extracting. And this in a biological thing would be described as a pest. It's an infestation of a pest. It is just extracting the top like locusts, and it's going to fucking leave when it becomes, inefficient for it to do so. So we need to, one, identify it as a pest, as an infestation, and then two, work out how to mitigate this naturally without eradication. So we need to, in organic processes, which you're about to hear King Charles talk about, I'm hoping, in his Netflix or his live stream production, you want to increase the thing for beneficial. That's what I am. And you want to decrease the efficiency and the assistance that you're giving to non-beneficial, which are people that are just extracting from a rental mindset. See, the King of England is the ultimate in owner. He's fucking chained to the place. He's an ultimate owner. He can't fucking leave. If he leaves, it's a big disgraceful fucking thing. He's literally fucking there. He's got the crown on and everything, so you can see him. And then downwards from that, because it is that institution that majoritively governs and controls over the land ownership, at least here and there as well. That every man who is a freehold, landed, owned, actually owning their land, they're a microcosm of the king. And that is the way that it has always worked. So there's no fucking shortcuts. And this is what's funny. You can go and spend your deposit and go and buy a piece of the desert. You're the king of that fucking desert. If you own that land. Yeah, but you do not get that status until you pay off your fucking mortgage. This needs to be distributed around. And there's too many people. A lot of them don't even have mortgages. They don't even have anything. Especially young women, unfortunately, are really with this feminist, ultra feminist, this extreme feminist ideology. They're wanting to be, basically ushered around the place on golden chariots while not owning anything, not having any stake on anything. Free to work here on a boat here and shit on someone's table in Abu Dhabi there and fucking, upload themselves with a butt plug and then talk to the Prime Minister the next day. That's the crazy model. You know what I mean? It's a crazy model, and there can be no stability within that. You need to have fucking roots in the ground. Or we're going to be forced to have nothing. I'll have to gather everyone up, and we'll have to return to England, and we will kick all the people that are fucking squatting there out. Down here, we'll open up the prison colony again, and you can all welcome them, with a big old fucking piss up. But I don't think that's what Australia really fucking needs right now. So, yeah, you need to own something. Ownership isn't just financial. Financial is the least important aspect of it. It's everything else that's incorporated. You won't understand the emphasis on proper, appropriate education until you have ownership. You won't understand environmental until you have proper ownership. You won't understand defense until you have proper ownership. You won't understand social cohesion and, social regulation until you have ownership in something. And basically, to paint a picture for all the fucking bogans out there, for all the men out there, for all the thing, it's like basically ownership is like I've got your fucking balls wrapped in fucking wire, and it's connected to that fucking to your son's motorbike or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like if your son takes off and fucking causes a fucking mess, your balls are going to get ripped off with it. And that's ownership. The responsibility to fucking police and to educate and to fucking bring up your children does not fall to the fucking state. It does not fall to the fucking government. It falls to you, the parents. And this was the model of ownership. If you live in a fucking town and your fucking young fellas fucking whatever it's like, then you fucking will get your fucking balls with fucking plain wire attached around a fucking thing and then the back of it tied to your motorbike. And both of you will be told, mate, if you fuck off, your old man's balls are going to get ripped off. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to explain ownership. And I dare you to go have a look at fucking history. Go have a look at the history of Great Britain, and you tell me whether it's fucking a pretty good description of what ownership means. All right. Well, that'll do for today. Hopefully, when I go and have a look at the telly, that these fucking hostages have been returned.